this is Kenny Grand. I'm a co-chair with the Progressive Caucus and your co-host for this episode of Southern Shift.
And I'm Leila, the operations officer for the Arkansas Progressive Democrats Caucus and the other co-host for this episode.
Yeah. And what we're going to do today, after we kind of walk you through what the caucus has been up to for the past since we were last on the podcast, is we're going to take a kind of deep dive, or as deep a dive as we can in the 30 to 45 minutes or so of time that we're going to have into the fundamentals of workplace organizing. We're going to do a lot of demystifying and ideally answering anybody's comments and questions. On whatever platform you're watching this on, feel free to pop through comments. We've got some people running the boards on the other side that can push some of y'all's comments through so we can address them. This will be pretty laid back. We'll start with the first segment, which is just updates on the caucus. We actually had like a double dose of events at the beginning of February on the 12th. And it was actually the two of us that speared each respective one. So I guess we can briefly talk about each. I went to the Crittenden County candidates meeting. For some reason or another, there are 5 contested races, like JP races and otherwise in Crittenden County. And it's like it's really rural, but it's like really top performing Democratic county. So it was really interesting going to that. For both of these, the caucus used what we'll talk about later, the Bearcat system to phone bank people around the area. And I do know that a few people came to this Crittenden County meeting that were new to town and had just recently moved in. And then Garland County, there was a mobilization. Leila, if you want to just briefly talk about why everybody kind of gathered down there.
Yeah, we went down to Garland County because I think it was either last year or the year before, the Quorum Court had some people come to them trying to push a resolution to do a grandstanding to declare it a pro-life county. So this time it was done again by one of their JPs, Dayton Meyer, who actually now just resigned, I think a few days ago, last week about. So what we did is we went and mobilized voters to Tex Bank to get them out there to express their disinterest in making that a pro-life county is what we did. There's about 300 people that showed up. The news media was there. We tabled outside with our petitions for the period tax and also the abortion amendment. So
that was a pretty big push between the other groups doing outreach. I think we reached maybe to about 10,000 voters in the area, text messaging and calling them. And that was one of the first times that we as a caucus had like phone canvassing parties. And we'll try and do that more often so we can try and let people know whenever we're having events. Another thing is, and the resolution was postponed indefinitely.
Yes, they tabled it indefinitely.
So they're bringing it back up, which is good. So also we had a CIP session. CIP stands for a Candidate Infrastructure Program, and we're treating it sort of like a fellows program where we're trying to bring in candidates from all over the state and all different levels to meet up every 2 months to discuss the main elements of campaign design. And so the first one was the intro. We're actually going to expand it to 90 minutes because there was no way that we could run a 60-minute session covering the amount of stuff that we need to, while also having time to where candidates can converse with us, converse with each other, ask any questions they have, and all of that. So we're going to have another one coming up on the 12th of March. If you're a candidate at any level, you're very welcome to it. You'll want to probably reach out to us at arprogressivedems@gmail.com or come message us on Facebook, join our Discord or anything like that. And we'll soon be popping up a membership and donations page. But you could sign on for a membership to be able to not only get updates if you're a candidate and you sign on as a member, you also will be able to have access to the other services and stuff that the caucus does. But the idea for doing these CIP sessions and the way that we're doing them, like I said, is to like help build relationships across campaigns, build a stronger county party in areas where we're doing it, and a stronger party overall, as well as help educate candidates on progressive issues and help to build like a party that actually runs on issue-based campaigns. And we do stuff around fundraising and everything as well. So we are needing more members. And we also could stand always to have more donations. Whatever donations that we receive go towards getting people out to meetings, setting up events, getting supplies for events, setting up tablings. And eventually we're going to be able to set up a fund to help cover the registration costs for candidates and stuff such as that. So membership is free. You can donate as well. I set up as a recurring donor because, for example, the StreamYard that we're in right now is $25 a month. So I actually donation level at a level that would work to cover the StreamYard. So that was sort of my thing, and I might actually increase it to if we decide to get around to doing print copies of the newsletter, but we'll have to see about that. We're needing more active members because we're coming up on 200 members, and we've got 200 members in 36 counties. But as far as active day-to-day organizing members, we've got like under 20, which is still really good, to have an organization that has even 8 to 12, like usually our baseline is 8 to 12 people on any given week that are constantly working on campaigns. We'd like to see that expand because we've got a lot of work to do. Leela is about to be starting her campaign and is going to, would probably appreciate people to come out and help canvass. Leela's also been helping other candidates with it. James Miller said issue-based. We still do that in America. We don't, and that's the problem.
It is.
After the last elections, we had a retrospective on it, and one of our big problems was that they always had small 2 or 3 word platitudes for their platforms, but no actual issue platforms. So we set up a legislative working group to help with that, and we'll cover that here later when we do the working group roundup. But yeah, and I guess we'll go ahead and get into that. I'll pitch the admin one real quick. We'll go through the week as we do it. So every day of the week we have evening meetings. On Tuesdays and Fridays, we also have afternoon meetings at 3 p.m. So the admin group meets up Mondays at 5. That's the group where we're taking care of our incorporation. Like currently, we're working on getting a second incorporated form set up so we can do active electoral campaign work. And so we really want to contract with 501c3s to work on getting voter mobilization grants and stuff such as that. And a lot of those are inherently nonpartisan. And then the other aspect of it is helping out with issue campaigns and stuff like that. So we're going to create a separate sort of entity. So the Progressive Caucus as a party auxiliary organization has its structure, and then the Progressive Initiative and the Progressive Caucus as an issue-based organization and as a voter mobilization organization has like their own separate silos to keep everything more transparent. That way we can more easily kind of separate things for the different functions. So and we've built up like a master list, and on Mondays essentially what we do is we just orient ourselves towards the week. Where we run through everyone to say what they're going to at least try and do for the week. I ended up fighting a cold this week, so I didn't get to check out much of my stuff. So that's Mondays at 5. Media is at 3 o'clock. If you want to talk about that a little bit, Leela.
So with the media, what we're really calling for right now is we worked on our quarterly that we came out with we're actually needing some more content producers. If you would reach out to Josh Fell directly on Discord with that. We're also asking for some more quarterly submissions. We're going to have a May Day theme for the next one. Those submissions are due April 20th. I can't. But we meet on Tuesdays at 3. I was just trying to think where I was going there for a second.
And also, yeah, we need content producers. We do have a TikTok. We've got a presence on every piece of social media, and each one has a really good specific use. We're actually wanting to extract some of the highlights from these podcasts to put out on Reels and on TikTok and stuff like that.
We definitely need more people to put their face in front of camera.
Yeah, May Day is going to be great. Hopefully, we can get together with a couple local organizations and have some like serious May Day festivities going on in Arkansas this time around. Electoral is the second group that meets at Tuesday. And the electoral group is really working on focusing on 2026 a lot, actually, right now. We're wanting to build up our member base and then identify people who would be strong candidates to run for JP positions or House or what's up, Ryan? What's up, Rory? Glad that y'all are online. I miss those folks. I need to come make y'all some pizza sometime soon. But we're trying to get ready for 2026. I think we're really just this year and in this electoral cycle trying to find the candidates that we kind of share the most affinity with and develop the resources that we have available and kind of like help out where we can. But we're also realizing that we have to take a more long-term viewpoint on this stuff because we are like we're wanting to build a mass-based political organization. And so we have to do a lot of capacity building and building out and getting our programs straight before we shoot for the moon, even though we are still going to sign up for grants and stuff. So in the electoral group, we really want to work right now over the next couple months about plugging actual candidates and incumbents into these working groups. Like the legislative working group, which we'll cover later, is one that would be excellent to help people build up competence and confidence around legislative drafting and kind of understanding and reading it so that when and if they do get elected, they're able to hit the running. We'll get to that. We also have built, we've called it the Bearcat system, canvassing access tool. It's like the Voter Access Network, except it's ours and it's more updated. We've been able to take the voter file and break it down to whatever level that we need it. And then we bring it into Google's API and set up walkable maps in Google Maps so that you can go and scout areas before you send teams out to kind of make sure things are safe and to set up rendezvous points whenever you're sending out canvassers. Or also, like when we have those two events, we ended up text messaging we've text messaged several thousand people over the past few campaigns. And that helps us because all that data we maintain and we don't have to pay for it. And we try and make it free and available to all of our active member candidates. If you're not a member candidate, or more specifically an active member candidate, we'll kind of put you on our little work list over here on the side and get to you when we can. But it's still a lot of work until we get the proper nerds on board. So nerds,
just me and you, we're the nerds.
Well, and we got Daniel too.
Oh yeah, Daniel's our big nerd, head nerd. And
we got a tryout of nerds, but we need another nerd to help us.
Better nerds.
Take these sheets and these APIs and build into a sleek app that we can then use to take over the world. So yeah, we want to get member candidates involved in the caucus more. We want to identify progressive candidates for 2026. We want to make our members run for office because that's what we got to do. The the biggest wave of candidates right now came as a reaction to the LEARNS Act, right? So we've got to raise these issues. We've got to counter these bad measures and bring people who actually represent us to our democracy, so it can actually be a representative democracy, right? So that brings us to events, which meets Wednesdays at 5:30. And the events group is one of the helper groups. Like, so the events group and the media group are both support groups. They both serve to kind of help the objectives of the other groups forward. Like, for example, if the legislative group writes a policy recommendation, they can reach out to legislative not only to help line edit it, but also to send it out and do press releases and get it out in the media and stuff like that. So that's pretty helpful. And events like It's the Fun Group, we've got a lot of barbecue paraphernalia. And so we're going to pretty much be hounding people to have grill outs and stuff when it warms up. But yeah, we want to get members tabling at local events. Like, one of our goals is every month to table at a local event. So if you're a member, we've got a whole nice table set up. We can bring it down to you and even come down and table with you, whether it's like a fair or the Watermelon Festival or like the Mountain View Folk Festival or stuff like that. Give us an excuse to come out and have fun.
I want to go to the porta potty races.
Do what?
I want to go to the porta potty races that they do in the fall.
Yeah, the porta potty races, and they've also got those jungle boat races, the cardboard boat races too. Fun to show up at. Yeah, so we want a table because we want to raise our profile, and we want people, day-to-day people, to see who we are and to start interacting, because that's how we grow. You know, we've had a few really successful events. So I just got a call that we got to hurry up and finish working the working groups.
Go.
So doo-doo-doo-doo. So legislative. Do you want to pop up that slide? Fridays are big. That's our L day, legislative and labor. So this little graphic right here is a representation of some of the major ballot initiatives that we have drafted, such as the Arkansas Jobs Guarantee Act, the Pro-Life Act. We wrote a Child Tax Credit Act, College Promise Act to kind of use millage taxes to help go towards local students being able to attend state colleges, Pay Transparency Acts, and on and on. I hate to rush through it because we're building a legislative research and response team with this group, because the upcoming legislative session is going to be a slaughter. There's going to be 15 days where people are dropping bills to completely and totally erode the state system. And we definitely don't want to have to deal with that. So not only do we draft legislation, we draft policy recommendations, we try and find candidates to adopt them, but we're also going to try and put up resistance during this upcoming hellhole of a legislative session. So moving on from that, yeah, we're drafting education pieces. And that we've actually got other stuff for other ones. We're not meeting with mutual aid. There's just not as many standing mutual aid organizations coming up. Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much. That's a cool profile picture too. Mutual aid's not meeting until we come up with a need. We will probably do disaster relief stuff or anything like that, and we will do mutual aid projects as needed. We just are so stretched that we really couldn't get that going. And then labor, which is an easy one for us because this is what we're going on. So essentially, we are working on helping teach people how to organize in the workplaces. And part of that is we've got a handbook that we've written based upon the trainings that we're receiving with the employee work or the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee. And other union organizing guides and sort of our personal field experience. And we've drafted a booklet, and the booklet is the first 2 sections of the booklet is the rough outline for the second half of this show, which we're not doing too bad on time, I guess, with the rest of that. But we're doing that. We're doing the podcast. We're helping one active union campaign within this, but also Leela's got an active union campaign as well. And I'm going to be hooking back up with Ewok to partner on trying to get more campaigns up and going around here. If you are interested at any point in time in going forward with what you learned in this podcast and organizing in your workplace, you can always reach out to us, and we can kind of help walk you through it. Hopefully, we can cover some good ground today. We've written a study on service sector employment. We won't go over that, even though it is a major labor issue. Like 80% of the Arkansas workforce is service sector, where the average income there is $28,000 a year or something like that. And the very small minority is full-time employed or has benefits. Mainly that would be like the trucking services and stuff like that, who have had higher union density historically, magically.
Magically.
So working on that. We're having an event coming up soon where we talk about this kind of stuff that we're talking about tonight, except at MacArthur Park in person. So that'll be pretty fun. And then also, if you want to pop up before we get to the actual meat of the show, if you want to pop up the graphic of the quarterly cover and the QR for the flipbook, we put out a quarterly newsletter, and this one was about to put together because we've spent the past couple really mapping out the organization, and it really shows how much the organization's developed over the past year. And that picture actually was taken at MacArthur Park in the snow, which is the same place we're going to be having that labor luncheon, which is fun. But yeah, you can scan that QR, that little gg.gg/APDC0124 down there. And then that will take you to a copy of the newsletter. We've been getting magically good readerships. But, let's see. That's about it. So I suppose we should get started with the basics, which is what is a union. Leela actually belongs to a union.
Well, I'm not in union eligible position yet.
Yeah, right.
Eligible yet, but I am trying to get it eligible. I am trying to get my position put into the AFSCME bargaining unit that we have up at work right now. And AFSCME is the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. And it's one of the major unions that we have up at my work. I'm a municipal employee.
Right. And so this little graphic here talks briefly about union eligibility in a right to work state. The unions are like, a lot of the places that are unionized in Arkansas seem to have issues where they don't have a really active membership base in some of them. There's a few that are more active, like the plumbers and pipe fitters and the electricians unions. But so like a lot of what we're going to talk about not only applies to like people who aren't unionized, but kind of like helping to make unions more of what they're supposed to be, the democratic mass of the workers in the job place. Like the unions are like, you have an arbitrator, that you have a steward that comes on as to help arbitrate your contracts and help to negotiate personnel issues and stuff like that. But that's only part of the union. It's up to you as a member, for example, to formulate the demands with your steward and to set your contract, and then to approve or veto the contract that the employer puts forth with your labor representative. So in the fight for workers' rights, unfortunately, not everyone is protected. So if you are a manager, if you hire or fire people, then you're not protected by the NLRB. So, like, the NLRB has specific protections, and a lot of them are based upon people's constitutional rights to free assembly and to free speech. Um, because a lot of the actual union organizing happens outside of work. Like, it's actually illegal for workers like to impede the process of work around union organizing type stuff. So it's best to be done off of the clock. Um, do we
But
have
you
a
can't get
second?
punished for talking about it. You gotta make sure. You can't be punished for talking about it though.
Yeah, you do get punished for talking about it, and we might get to the CMEX decision later on in the discussion where there have been laws are slightly changing in favor and tilting in favor of workers right now. So workers in the United States are legally protected when organizing or engaging in certain activities under the National Labor Rights Act, which they have the right to self-organization, which is to form a labor organization or a union. They have a right to concerted activity to advocate to change the situation in their workplace. They have a right to freedom from employer interference. So, like, employers can't interfere with or coerce workers in exercising their rights or not to form, join, or assist labor organizations. Of course, a lot of the times they still do, especially the giants like Starbucks and such. You have a right to distribute union literature into during non-working hours in non-work areas such as break rooms. So you can't get fired if you're like handing out union cards during break time. Essentially, workers can attend union meetings during non-working hours, and employers cannot prohibit or control these meetings. You can wear union buttons, you can wear union apparel at work. Sometimes, actually, people who are citizens at large will wear union apparel to support it. Um, and you have the right to engage in peaceful strikes, work stoppages, or walkouts, and employers can't retaliate. Um, and then you have the right to, you know, have a union and be represented by a union, and you have a right to engage in collective bargaining, provided the majority of the employees also want to do that. So you essentially, in order to start the process, you need to amass a 50% plus one vote. But yeah, and you do have protections from retaliation. The problem with a lot of these things is like the language and enforceability of them are so loose. So the national or state laws that recognize or constrain your rights are the NLRB. Uh, let's see, which one is this one? Yeah, so the NLRB is the one who like oversees and establishes and upkeeps the framework for the National Labor Relations Act. It is the organization that's safe that is like the last line of protection between employees and abusive employers. So there's a good number of protections. Whenever you're also wanting to organize, it's good to shop a union, but also inform the NLRB that these activities are going on so that they can kind of help you along with that process, and also so that you'll have certain protections or you'll be informed about certain protections. And if there's any like infringements on the part of your employer, they can do that. So you've got a lot of the same protections that were in that last slide, essentially. We can go on to the next one is the Arkansas right to work.
Right to work for less.
Yeah, Arkansas was one of the states in the early 1900s to pass right to work. So it used to be if, say, I'm working at Pizza Hut and we unionize the Pizza Hut, then if you join the Pizza Hut, then you would have to join the union as well. And what the right to work laws did was they said, well, You don't now. You don't have to join the Pizza Hut Workers Union, but you still get the benefits of the union contract, right? So you can like, yeah, so you can not be an active member, not support the union, but still get the basic rights. And it also like relaxed things around termination for a while. Like they used to call it the right to fire for any reason bill because there were provisions in it that kind of loosened up the you know it loosened up some of the laws saying why you can and can't terminate employment. So that's something that is a statewide piece of legislation that a political organization like the caucus could possibly work on reversing. I'd actually like to see the development of a Employee Free Choice Act, which
Hmm.
reverses that. It was a camp. It was something that was actually pushed by Bernie Sanders prior to any of his presidential runs, especially around 2006 to 2009. And the idea was that if you were terminated in the workplace for trying to unionize, you would not only get unemployment, but your employer would have to pay a certain percentage over unemployment to where you're getting 100%. And there was also fines. So that's all the background. Uh, Now let's get into what a campaign looks like. Like there's different phases. I'm not going to go through every part on this thing right here. I'll just say that in the beginning, towards the end, like it in the very beginning, it's sort of very secretive, right? Because you don't have anything resembling a workplace organizing committee. You don't have a team. You might have reasons, you might have complaints, right? Like there's one that I was working on that a one of their branches in another state unionized, and everybody got a $5 an hour raise, and that got a lot of the workers thinking in the workplace, like, well, why don't we push for a raise? It might not even be that though. Maybe like the transportation union workers here in they're already unionized, but the transportation union workers here in Little Rock, they were trying to push for shorter hours and more turnaround time and paid sick leave because a lot of them were just getting overworked and getting sick as hell during the pandemic. um, so those were the issues that brought them to the table. That second one I brought up, they already had a union, but the thing was building up active membership, right, to advocate. The one I mentioned before did not have a union, right? They saw a plant in another state who had unionized and gotten these benefits, and they're like, and so like everybody, usually like the point of capitalism is to pay you just enough to not think all the time about quitting and getting another job, and that's the line, right? Unfortunately, that line it's been erased for the past several decades. So this is the way we get back, you know. I don't know, Leela, did you ever have any like thoughts or about unionizing, any early jobs you ever had growing up, or?
First job, one of the first jobs I had that I thought about unionizing at was actually sitting in a union busting for Walmart, just listening to him talk about us being a family and knowing I was going to make $9 an hour. So, and have really short hours. But yeah, most of the jobs I worked at, I wanted to, but didn't know how to do it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that was the thing for me. I worked a couple part-time jobs when I was in college because the minimum wage was egregiously low. It was like less than $7 when I started college.
It's
And
5.95, wasn't it? That's how much it cost when I worked at Little Caesars. And I remember the,
up and
the, the shaker used to
yeah,
get paid that much.
went up to like 625 after a couple of years. Um, but so I had a work study job that I thought about unionizing, and then I worked at like Blockbuster. But like, yeah, there was just no way to do it. It's like, yeah, this would be great, and then that's it. Like and I went to look at other unions, and they were just like Well, we're for public sector employees, or we specifically organize in industrial workers, or we're a nurses union. And I would find a couple small unions like Unite Here, or a couple branches of the SEIU that like we might could look at, but like there wasn't any resources to be had. And that's the way it kind of has been. Until like the past several years. I think that one of the major breakthroughs, like I worked with the AFL-CIO in the early 2000s, but one of the major breakthroughs and what got me back into labor organizing is the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, which was like a group of veteran labor organizers who network with people like us who are community organizers, or people who have like maybe limited labor organizing experience, and help them walk everyday people through the process of unionizing. Um, so they've been really helpful in training people, and they've informed a lot of the work that we're doing with the caucus.
Mhm.
But you come up with an issue. If you want to create a union, it goes through different phases of almost privacy, right? Like early on, it's got to be fairly quiet. You don't want the employer to know that people are having the union conversation. So you want to map out the whole place. And we've actually got like you can get a hold of us and we can give you the handbook. But we've got a little sheet where essentially one of the first things we do is ask people to take pictures of their schedules, the work schedules, because one of the first things that you want to do is ascertain your bargaining unit. And Leila, you were talking about how you're working on getting yourself moved into the
Mhm.
bargaining unit. Right?
Mhm.
And so, who's in charge of that? Is that just arbitrated between the employer and the
But
union?
from my understanding, all I have to do is get enough cards with the people in my position and just take them up there, and the president can go to the next renegotiate. I'm not really sure. I don't really know much about it, but from my understanding, all I have to do is get the 50 plus one cards, and then just have enough to take it over there to them to get it renegotiated into the contract. From my understanding, the president is who would probably handle all that.
Yeah. So, your bargaining unit is the number of people in your job that would be covered by a union contract. Like some jobs are really simple and straightforward. Some jobs will just have, cashiers and dock workers, or and some jobs will have several. Like a university system is going to have a good number of them. They're going to have IT and communications workers that are going to be a bargaining unit. They're going to have educators, which is another bargaining unit. They're going to have food workers, and then sanitation workers. And you've got to figure out what your employer considers the bargaining unit too, because essentially that is the number of people that are going to be asked to vote for or against the union. So you want to map it out. You want to have every person written down. And then what you do with that list is you go through and think about the people who possibly you have like the most trusting relationships with, people that like are indispensable to the job, but can kind of like
Trusted, looked up
get away
to.
with things, like, and people who you can trust to have the beginnings of the union conversation where you can go up to them and be like, hey, I really think, maybe it's like, I really think that we should get overtime pay, like, or at least get full time pay because they're working us to 32 hours to keep us part time, to keep us from getting benefits. And so they've got us overstaffed and underworked and thus underpaid. And, and we need to do something about it. And then the person be like, okay, cool. I think I'd support that, or I'd definitely support that. And you want to map out the whole workplace according to like how much each person does or doesn't support it. Like, and you want to start slow and start small with people that you have relationships with.
Build out your
Some
organizing committee.
do that.
So you can build out your organizing committee.
Yeah, so you can build out your organizing committee. You want to identify the supporters. You want to identify all the detractors. Anybody who's like middle of the road, who's like, maybe you want to count that as a no. And you kind of just take your time having conversations about what you want and what you need. You want to double check everybody as you put it in, especially when it comes time for card check. Um, let's see, we got 20 left. Okay. So you go through that. That's how you build up your organizing committee. This takes the longest time. I've got campaigns that I'm on that I started a year ago, and they're still in the early phases because there's a lot of employees. There's all kinds of different reasons in different situations. Yeah, and nothing works at all without trades and crafts, and nothing works without workers. Period. And I
Okay.
think that's one of the two takeaways that people should have about this, because
Mhm.
as you begin to grow your organizing committee, and this is done by having meetings outside of work, like suppose like uh, I get two people, and it's like let's go to coffee and talk about this, and we decide okay, let's go ahead and get a union contract. Like, who do you know that would be down? And then you go from there, essentially. Um, let's see, the organizing conversation. It's really like, there's an art to building the demands and kind of understanding the unique aspects of your company's culture. Some of them are going to be easy. There's one that I've worked on that the owners were bragging about their affiliates having gotten union cards. So that was like, oh, we're going to have a lot of fun unionizing this shop. Um, and then some of them are going to be completely different. Some of them you got to kind of work really covertly. And each one is different. But really, it's about building relationships of trust. Like through all of this, like there's going to be times where as you grow, it's going to become more and more apparent what's happening to the management. And so that's when, they can, if they find out, they can do multiple things. They might bribe the primary organizers. Um, they might fire people, try to harass people, and then track their daily work and find reasons to terminate them. They can have captive meetings where they bring everybody in, kind of like what happened with Leela and Walmart, and what Walmart does is
4 hours long, 4 hour long meeting.
yeah. And there's been a lot of times, and I've had times where workers have gone in and record. There's like one with Starbucks workers where the workers went in and recorded it, and they immediately rebuffed any of the accusations of the employer and stood behind each other and stood each other's ground, and stood their ground, and ended up, walking out of that with other workers supporting the cause even more. So you've got to be mindful of those different things. So you want to contact the NLRB. You'll want to shop for whichever union you want. The union shopping is almost secondary to getting the organizing committee together. Because if you don't have people thinking about seriously organizing, then there's a lot that can't be done. There's been times like there was one case where the union would have been the Teamsters, and the Teamsters organizer was just like, that company is far too large, and I don't, we don't have the resources to launch a campaign. And so in situations like that, you as the workers kind of have to do all of the background work where you get the people do the card check. Card check essentially is where you get your coworkers to sign a piece of paper saying that they would vote in favor of a union. You can get those, and then you can turn those into to your union representative once you decide which union you want, and they can in turn, or you can also contact the NLRB. I would actually recommend contacting the NLRB kind of early in the game just to let them know what's going on so that if there is any sort of change in behavior or retaliation on the part of the employer, you've got ongoing records and and the NLRB has been notified, because then you can file a ULP. Have y'all filed any ULPs at all before, Leela?
Mm-mm.
Unfair labor practice.
No, we haven't
So that
filed any that I know of.
yeah, so essentially as you go through like the phases, the early phases are clandestine. The card check phase is like semi-private, right? Like you want to work your way through the list of people who you know are supporters. And ideally, you want to start with this phase once you're sure that half of your workplace is in support. Um, and but yeah, but the card check phase is semi-public, and you want to like throughout this like come up with different pressure points, and you have different targets. Maybe you've got a manager who supports you. Maybe you like have an easy thing with the leadership, and it'll be easy. Like you never know. But like you want to find pressure points. You want to find actions and escalations, right? Like, so you start the card check, and it looks like the employer is going to call a vote. Once it gets to that point, it's fairly public. You can push for public support, reach out to family members, affiliated organizations. But yeah, I mean, all of the whole process is started and curated by you, the workers, and it only goes as far as the workers themselves are willing to like kind of sit down and have these meetings. And I think like we're getting kind of close to the part where we're gonna ask if anybody's got any questions or comments. Leela, do you have any like anything that I haven't really touched on, or any questions or anything like that?
Um, I don't really know right now. All I can know is I really just want to stress that when you're union, when we talk about union shopping, you are the union. You and your coworkers are the union. So
Yep.
I just really want to stress that. So that's a big thing that I had to deal with sitting in the Walmart captive meetings, was that the union is a third party. The union is third party. No, you're the union. You decide your contracts, your negotiations on that. So I just would really that's something that I really want to stress to people, because that's something
Yeah.
that I have heard over and over, that,
Yeah.
well,
I,
what if I don't
and
like my dues? Well, what if I don't like what's happening such and such? Well, you are the union, so you get to decide that. You and your coworkers get together, you decide what y'all want to negotiate that out to. That's one of the biggest things. That's one of the issues I'm dealing with right now with trying to get people on board to get my position is, well, I don't like such and such. I don't like this. Well, we can change it if we're part of the union. So
one of the
it's a big thing
biggest
I want to
points
stress.
of unions is that they're corrupt. Can y'all really get into the weeds about that? Um,
Well, any
it's
organization is going to be corrupt if you have corrupt management, corrupt individuals. So you can't call the
yeah,
unions corrupt. It's the people in charge. And those people can be
yeah.
dealt with and removed.
Well, and one of the problems with the union movement is after the early part of the 1900s, like the 1930s or so, they brought leadership into the main unions that kind of pushed the more like radical and left leaning people out, and purged all the socialists and purged all the Catholic workers. And like there was like sort of this conservative push, but that's not the corruption that people are talking about. I think people are talking about the Hoffa thing, where apparently Jimmy Hoffa, for some reason, had a massive soft spot in his heart for workers and the workers in his community. So he became a major union figurehead, and led up the Teamsters. And kind of there were times where the Teamsters and the mafiosi would be in open war against like hired uh, uh, the hired thugs and stuff, that the bosses and the mercenaries, the bosses would bring in. So it was really interesting. So if that's corrupt, yeah, I mean, there were back at one time, there was a mafiosi connection with one union, but the unions are the workers. Like, And a lot of the model has changed to where it's more about arbitrating disagreements, right? Like, so I can see that. William says we have a Starbucks Workers United event on the 13th to support the union movement. You can create an event or sign up for one near you. Hit
Awesome.
William up for details. William's actually running for JP as well up in the community that he's in. And he's been spearheading a lot of the Starbucks workers support up there in the Springdale area that he's at. Definitely, if you're in Northwest Arkansas, get behind that.
Absolutely.
And also, we do have a workers like Discord hub, where we can like there's a little card to it. Tony Chisholm said union members vote their leaders in, just have to stay on top of it. That's right. It's like that's what it is like ultimately the union organization is your client and they're supposed to be arbitrating for your rights. So if you're in a union and the union's not doing that, then you need to renegotiate your relationship with that union or
Mm-hmm.
consider firing. That's it's
Mm-hmm.
on. Because you can
More
always
yellow
change
union.
for another vendor. I know that would be a kind of ballsy move, but so yeah, that QR right there takes you to the Workers Hub. You won't be able to access or see anything unless you are a worker interested in unionizing, and you'll fill out a form that's linked in there in the beginning, and to tell us your identity, which we keep clandestinely on the side so that people, that way when you go in, it's mainly handles. But we can also match up like workers with like. If you want to unionize in your workplace, get a hold of us. You can email the caucus, AR Progressive Dims. You could private message either one of us in social media. You can,
Join Discord.
yeah, join the
Join
Discord, get
Facebook.
on Discord.
Get on TikTok.
There's multiple avenues. arprogressivedims@gmail.com is a good general place to send things. But yeah, it's not this clandestine thing. It really just takes us getting fed up with the way we're being treated. And, one of the things that's happening is we're in an impasse where a lot of workers aren't getting paid enough to give a damn whether or not they're fired because they can probably get a raise going across the street to another person who's also massively understaffed. Because lo and behold, it's like, I get a good wage where I'm working now. Um, I'm not in a union shop right now. I might be able to sell unionizing if we can get a group healthcare plan. But as like a line cook, I make friggin' 22, 23 bucks an hour. And that's really good pay for what it is. And I still, if I lost this job or got sick and didn't work through it, then I would be homeless. And the only way to counter that and to kind of raise the bar is to engage in the sort of struggle we need to. And it just takes patience and trust and time and perseverance, and we can win. And there have been some victories, right, in Arkansas. There's been some victories with the Starbucks unions. The
New one
problem
on
with
Ronnie
that,
Parham just happened.
yep. The problem with that is Starbucks isn't engaging in good faith negotiations with them. So you've got a bunch of pink slips sitting on Starbucks's desk, and they're not sitting down to the negotiation table. A lot of the times, they're like selectively closing down stores to try and start strong arm them, and like sending resources to try and like break the union support so that
Mm-hmm.
they can kind of and overturn the whole situation. And so, yeah, especially if you're Northwest Arkansas, the workers need you there. But if you're a worker who needs help organizing, don't be afraid to get in touch with us. Um, we've got not only ourselves, but we've got access to a national network of people. So it can be done independently. It can be done in conjunction with EWOP.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, uh, it's a worthwhile struggle, and Let me see. I've got a little chat down
Josh is
here.
saying 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So yeah, when is that? Cassandra, I know you're over there in the ether. When is the Tuesday labor event? March. I'm gonna look right now as well because that's something else I want to plug. And we meet every Friday at 5, and we can help you start a campaign. Ryan was a member of the FCW 2008 in Kroger. Those meat cutters near retirement are making almost, what is that, $30 an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Retirement packages to boot. Yeah, and that's the thing is like there are so many large employers and chain employers that can actually afford it. And what they do is they prey on small businesses where they're like, oh, March 19th, that's a MacArthur Park event. But they're just like, oh, you're gonna destroy the small businesses. And actually, what happens is the opposite. When I was canvassing in Benton for the Employee Free Choice Act, I had like Latino business owners who were like, do you want to host events at our store? Because we like unions, because what unions do is they bring us more customers, because people who work in unions get paid more, and that drives up the wage everywhere. Tony says nothing beats union brothers if union management does their job. And Tony's in the IBEW. The IBEW actually was an organization that hosted a lot of the office space for the Employee Free Choice Act. The time for the event is at 6 p.m. at MacArthur Park Pavilion, by the way. Rain or shine. The pavilion is right next to the dog park. There's Wi-Fi. There's bathrooms in 2 places, both at the law school nearby and at the park itself. If we have rain, we'll try and get into the pavilion. If we have snow, we'll try and see if we can survive it. If not, we'll just do it all online. Ryan says, man, really tried to be anti new hires as much as possible, undercut a lot of those dues they would have gotten. Yeah, management always wants to try and dissuade people if they hear that there's going to be unionization happening, and a lot of it is because they're like, well, they're going to make you pay dues, but like, I mean, like Leela, what are y'all's dues paying members? What are the benefits
It's
they get?
$20.95 biweekly.
Right. But I mean, what are the benefits they get?
Oh, what do they get? Oh, they get like access. They get legal team. So if something happens, if you get fired or get some type of punishment done to you, get access to legal services. They also have like a credit union. They have like, there's also, it's hard for me to put this in 2 minutes, but it's a lot of stuff. They also have like a community that they can turn to. It's just, they have a lot of services that we don't have at all. And they have protection, and they also get step raises every year, guaranteed.
Oh, damn. Part of the contract. Okay. Well, we've got 2 minutes left. If anybody out there on the internet wants to get in any last few words or has any last minute questions, then have at it. Otherwise, we are going to slowly make our way out of the room. Like I said, we meet up with the labor group at 5 p.m. every Friday. So we'll be doing that again here pretty soon. Yeah, thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you all.
And many thanks to our stalwart helpers, Cassandra and Joshua over there on the console. This wouldn't happen without them.
Maybe we should put that Starbucks Worker United event up so William can have go. Maybe we should have so people go.
Did we end up with a graphic for that?
We don't have one, but we can get one and we can post it.
Sounds good.
All right, we're taking down.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for viewing. This was we made it and we didn't die, which is good. The next one, I think, the next one's gonna be on legislation, and that will be Mateo and a guest host. So yeah, feel free to join us later. It's about to be shutting down in 3 seconds. Thank you, Kelly.